The Tragedy of Cinema podcast is intended as a family-friendly program that by extension strives to be inclusive to all people regardless of their ethnicity, gender, creed, or any other identifying factors in this incredibly diverse world of ours. With that said, some of the films we discuss may contain serious subject matters or have content considered morally objectionable by today's standards. We do not intend to condone or dismiss these aspects of these films, but our primary focus will be on what we believe the film succeeds at, some fun facts, and our personal enjoyment factors of each film. With that said, we hope you enjoy the show.
Jimbo and Bond take flight. 80s dreams on its delight. In the realm of black and white. Movies and TV flow through the stories we all know. Silver screen tales unfold in the magic they bestow. The tragedy of cinema, when the memories shimmer. Join us as we toast to the tales we love the most.
Glenn Holland had a lifetime of plans to write a symphony.
That's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life.
And to raise a family.
Radio City Music Hall is proud to present Coltrane, Gershwin, Holland.
But before he can fulfill his dreams,
we should do nothing but compose music and become famous.
He'll have to face the music.
It was good.
A teacher has two jobs.
Nobody could teach these children.
Fill young minds with knowledge.
You're telling me that you cannot teach a willing kid to bang a drum?
But more important, give those minds a compass.
Turn around and keep marching. Left, right, left.
There's a compass. You're stuck.
You're going a little too fast, a little too erratically, just a little. There you go. Okay, what have we learned from this?
Mr. Holland, it has come to my attention that you are teaching the students rock and roll.
I will use anything from Beethoven to rock and roll if I think it'll help teach a student to love music.
Now, despite life's disappointments,
There's something wrong with Cole.
What?
I don't think he can hear.
despite life's frustrations,
You go off to school every day with all of your children who are normal. I can't talk to my son. You care more about teaching other people than you do about me.
Glenn Holland possessed the passion to overcome it all.
I'm giving up the clarinet. I just wanted to say thanks.
What do you like best about yourself?
My hair.
Why?
My father always says that it reminds him of the sunset.
Play the sunset. I got dragged into this gig kicking and screaming, and now it's the only thing I want to do.
You know, the big problem here is that you people are willing to create a generation of children who will not have the ability to think.
We've done the best that we can.
Your best is not good enough.
For 30 years, Glenn Holland found a way to make a difference.
Mr. Russ, congratulations, you found the beat.
And of all the lives he changed, the one that changed the most was his own.
Mr. Holland, of all the teachers here, you're my favorite.
Mr. Holland's Opus.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema podcast. I'm your host, Jimbo, and tonight I'm joined by, you know him, you love him. He's my regular co-host.
Hey, this is Bond down in Texas.
And Bond, being this is our 7th anniversary of the Tragedy of Cinema podcast, we've invited several people to be on. One of them was ADZ, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but he did send his rating and review in, and that will play towards the end when we start giving our reviews and ratings. But joining us via Zoom, you know him, you loved him before Bond. It is the one and only
Kyle Zahner in the house.
Well, not technically in the
house. In his own house, watching his friends.
Kyle is making a triumphant comeback for the 7th anniversary.
Yay.
And not only Kyle, but we did extend out the olive branch to Terrence, who was going to join us tonight, but he's not getting home till like 4 hours from now. And Kyle said, I got to go to sleep by then to get my beauty sleep. So I offered Terrence if he wants to send in an MP3, we'll plug it in back there with ADZ. So 7 years, guys, that's a long time.
You'll look a day over 5.
Thank you. But as I look back, you know, I'm thankful for the friends that were made, all the co-hosts from Terrence to Kyle to Bond to ADZ to even Art Toast, my dad. You know, 7 years is a long time to keep something going weekly. It takes a lot of discipline, right? Yeah, it takes a lot of time. But I'll start with Kyle, since Kyle, what is some of your favorite memories from the Tragedy of Cinema podcast when you were the co-host?
Definitely our October shows where we had in Lebanon, Indiana, where we had those real live shows were some fantastic times.
Where you shaved your eyebrows.
Shaved my eyebrows, became Uncle Fester from the Addams Family Show. I love when we did all that prep work for Harry Potter, the Chamber of Secrets, and we realized we already did it. That was a great revelation. That was a great
What
day.
About when we recorded Predator and I lost?
Oh, we lost the best recording that no one ever heard. Yeah, yes, the best show no one ever saw.
Absolutely. Actually deleted it.
We knocked it out of the park. Everything was great, except the fact we didn't record it. The best show we never heard. Yeah, so that's an absolute classic. But ultimately, it was it's not so much the individual moments, but just the overall commitment to the craft. It was really nice having a place where I could express myself and my thoughts to the world. And I appreciate you for giving me that opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome back anytime, buddy.
I know. It just, you know, life is continue to have its own demands, and I'm certainly trying to pursue my own passions in other ways as well. So, you know, I certainly hope to, you know, maybe sprinkle in more often as a guest on occasion, but I'm happy where I'm at right now too. So
yeah, but he's kind of like sprinkles. You get too many sprinkles, it ruins the ice cream, right, Kyle?
Exactly. I'm only good.
I'll tell you one of my favorite. Well, there's two. One of them is when Terrence, you, and my dad went on the tour of Lew Wallace's home, the author of Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
We actually went and toured it, and then they actually had some of the props from Ben-Hur that we got to see, which was really awesome. If anybody ever gets the chance to go on that, the craftsmanship and architect of that place is just beautiful. The other one, I can't really say a lot about. Kyle will know what I'm talking about when I say there was a recording that we did. I do believe it was in the heat of the night. And Kyle made a comment, and I said, "Kyle, you can't say that." He said, "Sure, it'll be all right." Nobody, and I said, "I'll just delete that out."
To think about it. Yeah, it was inappropriate. Like inappropriate in like for all circumstances, and not just this podcast. But it was pretty funny,
right? But Kyle was just so nonchalant. I was like, "Oh, it's fine. What?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So, I knew he would do what I was talking about.
No, it's probably not fine. That was an intrusive thought that I just let out.
Right. And you know, we'll kick it over now to Bond. Bond, what has been some of your favorite times as you've been the co-host of the Tragedy of Cinema?
My favorite part, of course, is when you thought I didn't exist.
Well, let's tell the story about that, because ADZ and I are doing the Twilight Zone, right? And we get this email or review. I don't even remember what it was. And it says something like, I don't even remember. And it said, J Bond, and I said, or Bond something, and I said, I don't know if this person's real, but I think they're trolling me because we had just recovered, Kyle, we had just done Bond, right? And I was like, I don't think that. So we were doing, me and 80s were doing a Twilight Zone episode, and I said, I'm going to tell you what. I said, if this Bond guy is real, I don't think he's real. But if you'll reach out to me, email me or something, and then he reaches out. He said, I'm real. Here I am.
Real.
I was like, wow.
Yeah, because I used to comment. Like, I would listen to the episodes, and you would always say, hey, leave a comment, leave a review. So I did. Next thing you know, it's like, I don't think you're real.
You never know when ADZ or Art Toast is going to pull a joke, or even Kyle.
Yeah, well, and then it's like, it went from history from there, man. I was like, yes, you found out I was real, then I was a guest, and, you know, just like single white female, I just squeezed myself in there until I was part of the show.
You slid into my DMs.
Yeah, like a real professional.
I'm dressing like you now, and you know, it's kind of awkward.
Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite parts too, is when Bond, when I did think he was real, and then he reached out, and I was like, oh no, he is real. I said, sorry about it.
I take back everything I said about him.
You know, and he just jumped right in. Like once Kyle left, I offered it to ADZ first, because I was like, ADZ, you know, you're already on here doing Twilight Zone with me. Do you want to? It was actually his suggestion that says, hey, why don't you reach out to Bond? But we had Bond on as a guest of one of the Twilight Zones. I said, yeah, I can do that. I don't know if he'll want to. I mean, he's all the way in Texas. He's a school teacher. I didn't know. And he's like, sure, man, what are we doing? What are we recording? And of course, Bond, do you remember the first movie I asked Bond to come and guest host is by himself? I let him pick the movie, Kyle. Guess what it was?
What was it? I don't know.
Bond, do you remember?
No, I don't. What was it? It had to be a stinker if you're pointing it out.
It was Anaconda, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, the classic movie. Okay, so I take it back. It was the great Anaconda.
And we found out that Bond's afraid of certain animals, critters.
Yeah, I'm deathly afraid of lizards and frogs. So,
oh, wow.
But his insurance is through Geico. Gecko.
You throw me in the Amazon, I'm not afraid of the
lizards,
Anaconda.
But frogs is a surprise. I have not many people really say frogs.
I would have said
it's because they're all squishy.
You're right. They are very squishy.
Yeah.
I can make a profile in my head. Like, why would you be?
But do you like frog legs?
Like, it's unusual. I've not heard of that.
You don't like
they're
frog legs?
Squishy and they pee on you.
Do you like frog
why
legs?
Would you like them? No.
Kyle, do you like frog legs?
I love frog legs. They're delicious.
They're delicious. They really are.
They really are. Yeah.
If I'm gonna eat a frog leg, I might as well eat a chicken leg.
So I might as well. I'm going to go ahead and then say this about Terrence. I met Terrence actually at a local gaming shop here, board game, and I had already had the layout for the Tragedy of Cinema in my mind, what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to get there. That was the biggest problem. I did not understand much about podcasting. I called in, took Jerry and Tracy out to eat from Hillbilly Horror Stories, and he pointed me in the right directions, but I still had to get everything set up, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing. And Terrence was actually up there recording a podcast at the gaming store with one of his friends about one of the games they were doing. So I said, hey, I bet I can get this. So I asked him, hey, can you help me? And do you want to be the co-host? He's like, sure. So we started knocking it out of the park pretty quick. So I want to thank Terrence for that too. And he has them legendary pipes, man. And I know he's doing some voice acting work now, which is great. So yeah, I think that's awesome. Really cool. So, thanks, Terrence. One of the things. So as I was sitting around trying to think of what would be a good anniversary movie, I know there's a lot of movies out there that are like blockbusters, ones that everybody knows. And I was going through my Vudu, as one does, because Kyle can attest, when you start scrolling through your own Vudu, it takes a while. Because when you have thousands of movies and TV shows that you're going through, and you're trying to think of something that will stand out, that's a good story that people may not have known and may not have seen, but it's a good movie and they need to see it. I landed on one called Mr. Holland's Opus, and I hadn't watched this movie in a long time. I'm sure Kyle never watched it till we just started watching this podcast, right?
No, completely fresh.
Right. Kyle just literally finished like 5 minutes ago when we started this.
We had to wait to start the podcast so you could see the ending.
Yeah.
And then, so I said, Bond, what do you think about this being our anniversary show? He said, all right, man, let's do it. I love it. Because those of you that know, Bond's a teacher. So I know it was going to affect him a lot more than was going to affect me. But, even me growing up, you always had that one or two teachers that impacted your life in ways that they will never understand. And that's why it hits me hard about this movie, because I think back on my childhood and my elementary school years, even my high school years, and I think of the teachers that helped mold me into the person I am today. And, there's really nothing you can do to pay them back, because they gave so much of their time and effort, and they just poured their love into you that it's something that you will forever be grateful for, and they will always stick with you. And I'm sure that's the way Bond feels about some of his students, that he wants to make an impression on them, that not just for the year, but for their life. So with that said, we're going to kick this off. We're going to kick it over to Bond. Bond's going to give us some details about this movie. And then we got Kyle. We're sprinkling in some of his comments and, whatever he feels like throwing in at times, because, he just comes off the cuff of his head and says what he wants. But he's going to give us a synopsis here after Bond goes through some of the stuff. So Bond, when you get done, you can kick it over to Kyle and then we'll go from there.
Sounds like a perfect plan. I have to agree that one of the best parts about being a teacher is making that difference. And I felt the same thing Mr. Holland feels in this movie. We'll get into it later, but sometimes it's just a simple gesture a simple phrase, a good job. I mean, just a simple, wow, I've seen so much improvement over the course of the year with your work and your, your work ethic and what you do. And that just something simple like that changes them forever. We are talking about, for our 7th anniversary, Mr. Holland's Opus. It's a 1995 American drama, right? This movie is directed by Stephen Herrick. I'm going to point this out. He's from San Antonio, Texas, about an hour away from me.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. He is famous for directing the movie Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Awesome.
Bogus.
That was pretty cool.
Whoa.
Dude.
Like,
excellent.
Excellent. It is written by Patrick Sean Duncan, produced by Ted Field, Robert Court, Michael Nolan, and Patrick Duncan. Right. This movie was the music. We always talk about the music later, but the music was done by Michael Kamen. He was a music producer for the band Pink Floyd, and he does all the orchestra music. In fact, Mr. Holland's Opus at the end of this movie was written and performed by him. So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
And also, hey, Bond, also on the soundtrack, the film's main theme song, I think it's called Cole's Song. Mm-hmm. It is performed by Julian Lennon, who is the son of the Beatles' John Lennon. So he's singing that on the soundtrack. I thought that was pretty cool, too.
I love that. The release date, they missed the Christmas entrance.
Ah.
It was almost a Christmas movie. It came out December 29th, 1995. So they missed it. Like New Year's Eve movie? Is that a thing?
Oh, wow. What interesting timing there. I wonder what kind of brought on that choice. I mean, like, if anything, would have held it from next year all entirely.
Yeah, just wait a couple weeks. The running time is 143 minutes, so a little over 2 hours and 20 minutes or so. So, pop some corn, go to the bathroom, do what you need to do, because this is a long one. The budget for this movie was $31 million in 1995, which is $65 million today. It had a box office return of $106 million, so a little bit more than tripled their money. Translation today, about $227 million. So made for 31, it did 106. Not bad, a little over triple the money, right?
Modest performance.
Yeah, I thought so. Let me break down this cast. I bet you recognize a lot of people in this movie. This movie's got Richard Dreyfuss as the starring role, Glenn Holland. He's a composer who becomes a music teacher at the John F. Kennedy High School. We know Richard Dreyfuss from movies like Jaws, American Graffiti. I think American Graffiti was like his first movie. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. One of my personal favorites, What About Bob? He was also in Down and Out in Beverly Hills. You guys have a Richard Dreyfuss movie that sticks out?
I right there with you. What About Bob for sure? That movie, Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss kind of famously kind of hated each other on the film, but that kind of almost chaotic, hateful relationship led to an even more comedic film in the end. And I love that film to death. Love the tears. I haven't watched it in forever, actually. When I added my watch list to get rewatched it. It was fantastic. But yeah, Richard Dreyfuss, fantastic in there. Of course, Jaws can't be underrated. It can't be overrated. It's an excellent film as well. So that's an excellent performance as well from Richard Dreyfuss. So that's my personal picks for sure. Jimbo, how about you?
Yeah, I think Jaws is probably number one. And then What About Bob? It is a very underrated movie, hilarious at times. And then American Graffiti. If you haven't seen American Graffiti, it's a great one too.
Yeah,
I agree, man. His wife, Iris Holland, is played by Glennie Headley. Plays his wife. She was in the movie Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and also the movie Dick Tracy.
Yeah, she was Tess, Dick Tracy.
So get this. Here's the most interesting thing about her. She was married to John Malkovich. Okay? But divorced him after he had an affair with Michelle Pfeiffer during the filming of Dangerous Liaison. So I was like, whoa, that's big.
Becoming John Malkovich.
I know. Literally. This one was Jay Thomas as Bill Meister, the gym teacher, the coach at John F. Kennedy High School. It's kind of like his friend in high school. He's got like that one teacher friend. That was Jay Thomas as Bill Meister. He was in the television show Cheers, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was a regular on that one. He was on Murphy Brown. He was also cast as the Easter Bunny in the Santa Claus 2 and 3. Which is appropriate for when we're recording this.
Yeah.
Olympia Dukakis as the principal, Helen Jacobs. principal at JFK. She ends up retiring in 1972 in the movie. She's an Academy Award-winning actress for the movie Moonstruck. She's also in Steel Magnolias and the Look Who's Talking movies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Accomplished actor.
One of my favorite actors, William H. Macy, as Vice Principal Gene Walters. And later he becomes principal. So when Olympia Dukakis' character, Helen, retires, he becomes the principal. Principal Gene. He was in the movie Boogie Nights, Air Force One, Jurassic Park 3, and of course he's famous for being on the television show Shameless.
He was also in Mystery Men and Pleasantville.
Oh, yeah. Mystery Men's a great movie.
Also, I think he's one of my favorite roles ever. Actually, it's his role in Fargo. I love that role where he's the car salesman that's constantly trying to one up a salesman. He's like, "You're not going to believe this," but
yeah, it's like every movie he's in is classic. It's great, man. I love
William H. Macy is like one of the last few character actors still around, in my opinion. Like, you know, character actors don't exist anymore because now they have to all be stars all the time. But William H. Macy is still around doing great work, and he's been doing
and
great
he
work.
Steals every scene he's in every time.
For 30 plus years now, so he's been doing great. So yeah, good for him, man. William H. Macy, what a treasure! What a treasure!
I agree. Alicia Witt plays Gertrude Lang, an aspiring clarinet player who eventually becomes the governor of Oregon. She was actually discovered on the show Twin Peaks. Waters discovered her. Mm-hmm. She was also in a movie called Urban Legend and another movie that came out not too long ago called Long Legs. Mm-hmm. Is that a spider movie? I think it might be a spider.
I believe there's a spider kind of symbology in the film.
It's a horror movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joanna Gleason plays the adult Gertrude Lang. She was also in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and Hannah and Her Sisters. We have Jean Louisa Kelly as Rowena Morgan. That's that talented singer who goes off to try to get her own singing career.
Has a crush on the teacher.
I recognized her right away as the girl from Uncle Buck.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's like one of the girls that he watches on Uncle Buck. But get this. She was also in the movie Top Gun Maverick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
She plays Iceman's wife.
Yep.
Which I thought was pretty cool.
Small world.
Yeah. This movie has Terrence Howard as Lewis Russ, the football player who has no rhythm. They had to teach him how to play the drums in the marching band. He was in the movie Iron Man, of course. He plays War Machine in Iron Man. He was also in the movie Hustle and Flow.
Yeah, Terrence Howard, excellent actor as well.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I know you saw Forrest Whitaker.
How about his brother?
But the younger one
scene.
Damon Whitaker, plays Bobby Tidd, one of Glenn's students, right? And you see him, Damon Whitaker, and I was like, man, that dude looks a lot like Forrest Whitaker because he's got that one like lazy eye thing going. And then later, the adult Bobby Tidd is played by Forrest Whitaker, right?
Oh, wow.
So Damon Whitaker is in the movie Ghost Dog, First Daughter. Of course, Forrest Whitaker, a legend in his own time, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Color of Money, Platoon, Good Morning Vietnam, and of course, a load of Star Wars movies, including Rogue One.
Yeah. One of my favorites was with him and John Travolta in Phenomenon. It's probably my first introduction to Forrest Whitaker as an actor. Really appreciated him in that film. Excellent film in its own right as well.
Yeah, my brother and I still quote him from like Fast Times at Ridgemont High for sure.
Yeah, fantastic actor, great guy. Also, the film, one of my favorite film, Arrival, too, where he plays one of the military commanders there. Fantastic.
Yeah,
film.
he's great.
Yeah, Forrest Whitaker's amazing. Yeah.
Alexandria Boyd plays Sarah Alsmid, the drama teacher. And Cole was played by 3 different actors. So there's Nicholas Renner as Cole Holland, age 6. Joseph Anderson is Cole Holland, age 15, who was in the movie Whacked. I don't know, it looks some cheesy 80s movie, I think.
Like Zapped.
Yeah, exactly. And then Anthony Natali as Cole Holland, age 28.
Did you know?
He was... Oh, go
Bond,
ahead.
did you know that every person in this film that portrayed a deaf person is deaf in real life?
I was just about to say, he's really deaf in real life.
All of them are.
What?
Yeah.
Every person in this film that portrayed a deaf person, they're actually deaf in real life.
That's incredible.
So, yeah.
Excellent representation.
I thought so too. The only last one worth mentioning, Beth Maitland as the deaf school principal, the principal where the deaf school where Cole ends up getting enrolled. She had a reoccurring role on Young and the Restless. So, but that's really your staff. That's really your cast for this one. It was a big cast, lots of stars in it, but overall, just a great thing to go, man. Kyle, what you got for us?
Oh, for an overall kind of synopsis, if you will. Like I said, it's an American drama. I believe it's actually based on a real life true story. And basically, Mr. Holland, I'm not looking at the synopsis. I promise, Jimbo.
Yeah, he's like, I lost my place.
No. Mr. Holland is basically a musician who decides to become a teacher, for a musical appreciation teacher, as like a side gig to make money to pay the rents so he can afford his actual musician goals and overall thing like that. But as he grows as a person and begins to love his teaching and his work, he realizes that in sharing his passion for music with his students and growing as a human being, that is his ultimate achievement in life, instead of the musician work that he previously strived for in his opus and all that stuff too. So thus the literalization of the title Mr. Holland's Opus becomes the opus of his life. That's basically literally till right at the end of the film. But yeah, follows his entire life journey for basically around 30 years, basically like that too, from when he's a young adult, just now starting off his life, really getting out of college and all kind of stuff, becoming a teacher, and then going through the multiple decades from the late 60s all the way to the mid 90s, kind of going through the students and what his impact on their lives is, and going through that kind of story. And along the way, of course, we kind of go through several kind of key events throughout real life history, such as the war in Vietnam, taking the lives of some of his students, the death of John Lennon, being a huge, musical figure, dying away so tragically soon in his career, and many other little aspects of that, kind of going through the entire film there. So that's an overall basic explainer for what the film is, and we kind of reach an ending there where he goes through to the, gets the final retirement of his career there. So that's the overall synopsis of the film.
Right. What I think of when I think of this movie, I kind of compare it to Forrest Gump in a way, because it's showing history going by, as also the 30 years that he's going by is showing, like, it's
a very similar timeline.
Right.
Also Forrest Gump as well. You're right.
Right. That's what I drew from it too. So, like I said, we're not going to talk about every scene of this movie, but if we want to point out some different scenes that stuck with you or impacted you, we'll let Bond go first with one, then we'll go to Kyle, then we'll go to me, and we'll see. We'll discuss those that way. It's kind of like a roundtable discussion for this.
I like it. Well, the first scene that sticks out to me is when he takes the teaching gig as a temporary thing, thinking that I'll have all this extra time to work on my music. And it's just a great example of how life happens, because he's like, I'm going to do this little teaching gig. It'll be fine. I think there was a 3-year plan at the beginning. I'm going to do this for 3 years, and then I'll have enough money saved up where I can take some time off and do some writing. And it's just amazing how through the course of his life, he ends up being there for 30 plus years. I just love that idea of this is only a temporary gig and it becomes his life.
Yeah, life took him for a ride there for sure.
Yeah, it reminds me of there's a famous saying that says, life happens while you're making plans. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what this is all about.
Well, and I'll add this to that is when he has this aspiration that he's going to have all this extra free time as a teacher. Bond, as you know, you have almost zero free time when you're a teacher. And I think the caveat to that is the principal. The principal is like, well, we want you to, come to these meetings. We want you to, she keeps adding work to him. He didn't know that was part of his job, like private lessons or whatever. And I think probably the unsung hero of this movie is probably the principal, because she saw something in him that he couldn't see himself. And I thought
teaching
that was
is what you pour into it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yes, I could go and teach from, the first bell to the last bell, and that's it.
Yeah.
Or you can care. You could have a passion for the students. You could have a passion for the lessons. You could have a passion for learning. And through that is how the kids get absorbed. My energy in a classroom is reflected back to me. So if they sense in any way that I don't want to be there, then they won't want to be there. If they sense that I'm insecure, they'll be insecure. So that scene where the principal tells pretty much Mr. Holland, teaching is what you put into it. You're putting in the bare minimum, and I need more from you.
Right.
And that's so true.
So, Kyle, I got to let you in on a little story, because you probably haven't listened to the podcast in a while. Bond says all this, mm-hmm. but his kids have like these iPads, that they take to school or whatever. And he had to stop a kid from looking up the Tragedy of Cinema on YouTube, listening to an episode. Could you believe it? He's like, you can't be doing that in school. Now, when you get home, download all these.
Download all the episodes, leave a review.
Yeah, you could keep that tab open. Let's just focus on our lesson, shall we?
Exactly. Yeah. But Bond is entirely right too. I mean, I feel, of course, I don't know firsthand, of course, but teaching is so much of an incredibly high pressure to lead by example in so many scenarios, to be confident in your own right, to naturally direct these kids in a way that inspires them to learn and succeed in a very challenging environment for them. And it can be like tremendous pressure. And I think there's I think like teachers that do treat their jobs, I'm not saying that all of them do or even many of them do, but like treat it as a 9 to 5 is also respectable in its own right, to try and treat your job as a job and try and have those kind of separations. But I also, truly appreciate the teachers who do take a time to make it as passionate as possible and try and give their students as much energy as possible, because it can have dramatic effects on their lives and it can do everything for the better. It's, I think, similar to kind of also high pressure, jobs in the medical world, teaching world, and all these other kind of facets of jobs or like firefighters or police officers, where like if you take the time to go a little bit further, it can make a tremendous difference on people's lives, and it can have tremendous, profound effects on them that you feel the social responsibility to always be there for them as much as you can be. And that can be incredibly exhausting, I'm sure, but also incredibly rewarding in its own right. So, and this film exemplifies that to the purest degree too, because this teacher, Mr. Holland, didn't expect to be caught up in life the way it was. But as you see him go through the film, he actually starts to realize like, oh snap, this is maybe the most fulfilling thing in his life, to the point where I think to a degree, he gets addicted to being a teacher more than he wants to be a father. And that becomes a problem in the film for sure. And I don't know how much that could reflect in real life possibly, but I think for sure that he gets so addicted to becoming a teacher, he neglects his own family to a degree. And that's something that he has to face and kind of deal with. And I think like the film maybe doesn't do the best job of saying how he rectified that and got that balance straight up, but I can tell that he recognized that in himself and tried to make amends as he went forward, for sure. So this film, it gives me a great deal of respect for Mr. Holland and what his efforts were, but it also kind of reflects a little bit of the reality of just like, you can't be everywhere at once. You want to be, obviously, you want to be that good person to do everything, but
we see this with Gertrude first, right? The redhead who cannot play clarinet.
Yeah.
And he could leave. He could just go, well, just let her stop playing the clarinet, go on and do something else. Finds out she's been practicing for years, finds out everyone in her family's really good at something but her. And he takes that extra time. What does it, come by before school, 30 minutes before class, and we'll practice together. You don't get paid extra for that. You don't get anything other than just that quality time with a student. And it makes all the difference, because we know at the end, she comes back as the governor of the state.
Yeah.
And to say that she didn't have influential teachers, professors, to become governor later in her life, and she does this for Mr. Holland, to me, that was a big moment.
And not only that, but she performs in the All-American Choir or All-American Band, and she's up there playing the clarinet. So obviously she stuck with it and got better.
Yeah.
So Kyle, what's another scene in this movie that kind of stuck with you?
That's coming off fresh. So for me, the whole movie is just like right now in my head. But it's, for me, it was a moment of, I forget the wife's name. I'm terrible with names in general, but the names of the wife in general. But when she first told Mr. Holland that she was pregnant, and she didn't know how to react later. And so she kind of just went off to her own room and laid in the bed for a little bit. And then Mr. Holland proceeds to tell her about listening the song, the album he was given by Colton, that he was given, and how he first listened to it and he hated it. But then he listened to it again, and he realized that he kind of became almost addicted to it in a way that became part of his passion. And he realized it was all he wanted to do. And I feel like in the moment he was saying that all he wants to do is to be a father in the moment. And now he kind of comes to that kind of realization that like life is taking him for a ride. He's not, someone else is bringing this to him in a way, but he's willing to take on those challenges and be an inspiration to kind of like, he's inspired himself to become that kind of person in his life. And it was a really pivotal scene for me in the film, watching it, trying to see like how he adjusts to the situation that he's found himself in. Because I'm sure there's so many aspects where Bond said, life happens while you're making plans. For him, he just wanted to be a successful musician, and instead he has a fantastic career being a great music appreciation teacher. It's like, oh, I gotta settle for that, I guess. I gotta be a family, I gotta have a family and have a career. But overall, I feel like that scene was the biggest scene for me, where I realized like he's, still appreciating what he has, and not what he wants.
Change is hard, and so I think what he's realizing is this is a big change in his life. It's now he's got to put his dream on hold a little bit longer.
Bill that he doesn't have money for.
Another obstacle so his 3-year plan of teaching now becomes a 5-10 year plan of teaching at least. And so that change is hard for him, man.
Yeah.
I think one of the more pivotal scenes of the movie too is when they're in the parade, right? And his wife looks over at their son in the carriage, and he's just sound asleep. All this hooping and hollering and noise and everything. And she's got that worried look on her face. And then when Mr. Holland comes back, he's talking about how exciting it was and all that. And she's like, I don't think Cole can hear. He's like, well, what do you mean? She's like, I don't think he can hear. Mm-hmm. And this right here sets the tone for the rest of the movie, because it obviously puts another financial burden on him, because she's like, she wants the best for her son. She's like, we can go to this private school. He'll have private tutors. And he's like, that's a bill we can't afford, and she's like, he's like, she just wants the best for her son. And this is where they get in that fight where, you get to go to school and escape reality and talk to normal people every day, and I can't even communicate with my son.
Great scene.
And there's that one thing, where the son's like pointing for something up in the cupboard, and she's like, I don't know what you want. What do you want? Tell me what you want. And, and he just keeps pointing and screaming and throwing a fit. And Mr. Holland and her get into it there too. And it's a touching scene, because you see throughout the rest of Cole's life, he's not really present. He may be there, but he's not present. He's not caring. I won't say he's not caring. He probably cares. He's not invested into his son's life.
Well, I think clearly it's a tremendous strain on him as well. The fact that, like, with his students, he feels so rewarded that he can share his passion, and his students understand that. But he feels like, because his son is, almost entirely deaf, he can't share the thing that makes him most passionate in his life with his son anymore. And I think there's, like, not necessarily reflective of the real life Mr. Holland, but of the fictional Mr. Holland, it is, he starts to be more reserved with his son about how he wants to treat him, because he doesn't feel like he has the ability to express anything with his son. So he chooses not to. He goes distant with his son throughout the majority of this film. It isn't until he's confronted by his son after John Lennon's death that he actually can appreciate the same things his father appreciates, if he only gives him a chance.
Yeah, because he said, what makes you think that John Lennon wouldn't affect me either?
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
It's really tough when he finds out his son is deaf. That is so hard. It's a hard scene to watch, just because of, like Kyle was saying, just that passion that he has for music. He's devoted his life to music. He loves music so much, and he thinks at this moment he can't share what he loves most with his son.
Yeah.
I have a son. Jimbo, you have a son. I know that. It crushes me every time my son does not like the same things I like.
Oh, tell me about
what
it.
I'm saying?
You have to mourn it. Yeah. I imagine.
And it's just because he chooses not to like it, not because he can't like it. And so in the case of Mr. Holland, he thinks his son can't enjoy music. He can't.
But then again, he's
right.
teaching about Bach in class, right? That's like
that scene was heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was.
Gosh. Yeah. And you have to admit, like, well, Bach wasn't born deaf. So it's like, oh God. Yeah. So it was just a double whammy there of just trying to, like, accept what he cannot change and the difficulty of life there. And I'm sure, like, I know people in my life who have disabilities, or know people who deal with family members who have disabilities. And it's incredibly harrowing. It's a very difficult way of going through life, because you want to give them all the love and appreciation you have, but there's so many limitations of what you can physically do sometimes. But we still do it because that's what matters. That's what, the responsibility we have imparted on ourselves to be parents, to be siblings, to be,
And Iris does such a great job. The actress who plays Iris does such a great job. Her screen time, if you think about it, it's really limited in this movie. but she seems to make a big impact every time she's on the screen. I thought she did a wonderful job in this one.
Great scene stealer.
Yeah, she was great.
I agree with you.
All right, Bond, tell us one of those moments that made you cry in this movie. You said you cried multiple times.
I did. I cried multiple times. One of the times I know sticks out is when Richard Dreyfuss he's got his orchestra out there. He's made this connection with his son over John Lennon's death. And he sings Beautiful, Beautiful Boy with the orchestra playing in the background. And I love it because he's like, for those of you who are deaf, he makes a dedication to them. To those of you who can hear, I apologize, because he's not a very good singer. And I think the fact that he's not a very good singer and when he performs it, that's what makes me cry. It's because he's doing it out of love for his son. He knows he can't carry a tune. But it's just the words of the song get to you. And I just got so absorbed in that scene, the love that he has for his son, like the first time he's able to truly communicate with his son since his son's been born. He's always had this wall between them. And this is the scene to me that opens that wall up and says, I'm with you, son. I'm going to sing this song. It's going to be embarrassing, but it truly comes from his heart. And so I definitely did shed a tear for that one.
Well, not only that,
choosing to be incredibly vulnerable in public in that scene. Sorry, Jimbo.
No, you're good. But not only that, but he actually is starting to care what he shares with his son, because remember, he goes and asks that deaf principal, what can I do to help somebody that can't hear understand music? And she's like, well, what about lights? And the lights go off, you know what I mean? And it's just, he's putting in the effort now to be a father and try to spend more time with the son. And I thought that was really great.
Fantastic. I agree with you. Yeah. I don't know about for me personally, but like, I didn't cry during the film just because I'm a bitter young man. No. But I can feel the emotional resonance at the end there, especially when he's reflecting on his whole life and the governor just basically tells him the overall theme of the entire film is that the Opus is his life and his career at the school. And that his magnum opus will always be the reflection of the impact he made on all those students and all their lives and how inspirational he's been to them. And that being his true lasting legacy for his life and being emotionally moved by that. And Richard Dreyfuss being an amazing actor there, crying during that scene as well, being emotionally overwhelmed was touching. And if I was in the right headspace that day, if I was feeling it that day, I definitely would have cried right then and there, I'm sure, because I could feel myself kind of welling up just a little bit watching that scene there at the very end. So you guys get to see me for a little bit, feel, I'm a little bit emotionally overwhelmed right now. How about that?
Yeah.
So that was an excellent scene as well, and really kind of brought the whole film together in a way that I appreciated a great deal more. And I feel like overall elevated the entire film to being something that I appreciate more, because I was feeling a little more cynical watching the film early on, the first couple hours of it, or the first hour and a half of it. Honestly, I was feeling a little more cynical, like this is kind of cliche and trying to get to me. But the truth is, like, we use those cliches because they work, frankly. So just because the film is playing the greatest hits doesn't mean those hits are any less bad, any less good, frankly.
Yeah, it was definitely a tear jerking scene, man. It's the whole idea of when you're a teacher, you don't know if what you are doing makes a difference.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing pays off, because they're in your life for 8 months, 9 months, and then they're gone. And then a new batch comes in and you get to know those guys and you get to learn their names and their families and their struggles. And there's so many like personal stories I could share just from this year. And to think that in a few months, they will be gone. And I'll have no idea whether or not anything I said made a difference. Anything I do makes a difference.
Bond, have you had a student yet how long you been teaching now?
I've been teaching for like 20 years.
Have you had like one of your earlier students ever reach back out to you?
I have, most of them in a fun way, but I will tell you a really great story real quick. I was at an assembly I taught at a Christian school. So it was like a church assembly. Mm-hmm. And one kid who was in his 20s came forward and addressed everyone and proclaimed his love of Jesus. And he said that he did this, that he came to this decision by being in Mr. Bond's Bible class.
Mm.
And this was maybe like 5 to 10 years after he was in my class. So that seed that I planted with him that 7 years ago, it actually grew. And so when he was up there and people were asking him about, his faith, he had actually mentioned me, and he pointed to me out in the crowd. And I just started bawling right there. I stood up, I gave him a fist, a hands up sign, a thumbs up sign, and I just started bawling, dude, because I made a difference. And it's one of those things where it's like, at the time, I didn't think I did. You know what I'm saying? I was just doing my job. I was just teaching.
Yeah.
And so in this movie at the end, when he gets decades of students, generations of students coming forth to say, you made a difference in my life. Here's who I am because of you, because of the extra time you spent, because of the 9 months I had with you. It's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You never know, man. It may take decades, but and it was probably worth your entire teaching career just for that one student to make something like that too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure you've had many other impacts for that maybe go unthankless over the years, but what?
Nope. That's just that one.
Well, let's,
I got one.
You got one.
Yeah, of course, man. There's been hundreds of kids.
Yeah, I can certainly think of some teachers who've had an impact on my life too that I've needed to get back to over the years. But,
for good or bad, Kyle.
No. They have a positive.
Yeah, he's like, that one teacher, from Breaking Bad, told me how to make crack cocaine.
If I had my opportunity, I would have some choice words with them. But they probably have no memory of it now. To be fair, they're not even a teacher anymore.
He was a physics teacher, taught you how to make meth.
All right, no, just a history teacher was a little inconsiderate one day, but he was probably having a bad day too. I probably need to give him some grace.
But see, that's exactly what I'm talking about, though. It's like one comment, one day impacted you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. It was just, but like I said, I was a kid. He was an adult. It's just, I let it go. I should let it go. But yeah, I've had many other teachers. I have many other teachers though who've had a positive impact on me. I've been meaning to look back and reach out to them eventually over time. It's one of those things of personal reservation, because I was like, well, okay, if I reach this point in my life, I can say hi to them. It's like, I can say hi to them now. It's fine. They'll still be missing me, I'm sure.
I hate you.
Yeah.
It's over, teacher. I have the high ground.
I had an English teacher that was very, very supportive of me in my early age, and I really meant a lot to me. So I was happy to have them in my life, and I should show them some appreciation later. So good guy on that situation. I'm sure so much of teaching, I imagine, goes thankless when they've had so many teachers have had really profound, great impacts on so many lives. It's impossible to understate. It's impossible to overstate just how important being a teacher is.
Right.
And it's completely unfair burden to place on anyone, I feel, because it's just, there's so much. Well, there's so much pressure there.
I think the problem is parents think that their teachers should raise their children instead of doing it at home too. That's part of the whole issue too. But that's for another podcast, not this one.
When we get to the
how about the music? How about the music in Mr. Holland's?
How about the music, Bond? You got anything about the music?
That's a great transition.
Man, the music in this movie was great, man. If you listen closely, you'll hear Stevie Wonder, Uptight. Like you mentioned, Julian Lennon, John Lennon's Imagine is in there. There's Jackson Browne, The Pretender. I Got a Woman by Ray Charles. Right, of course, I already mentioned that Beautiful Boy by John Lennon comes out. And, of course, the American Symphony, which was done by Michael Kamen and the London Metropolitan Orchestra. He actually won some awards for that arrangement.
Well deserved.
Yeah, he won a BMI award for best score,
best bowel movement.
Yeah, the BMI. Sorry about that.
Most relaxing.
Right. This movie had a lot of award nominations. It actually, Richard Dreyfuss was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor in this one. What do you think? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
I'm thinking a yes, strong yes. I think he poured his heart in this film, and it really reflects in every scene he has. Yeah, I was saying another thing about the film too, about musically, like it shows an appreciation for multiple genres and multiple takes. and multiple eras of music that I really appreciate as well. It has it really does strive for the true musical appreciation and not just what would be, I guess, normally considered in a classroom curriculum. Maybe it's a little broader than what you initially would expect from a film, or even especially from a more conservative, not conservative political sense, but conservative in just the sense of not as being as broad in a curriculum. So I really appreciated that in this film as well.
He lost the Academy Award because Tom Hanks took it for Forrest Gump.
Well, understandable.
So I was like, yeah, exactly. Because I had to look it up to see, okay, well, if he did put that performance together and he didn't win, who won? Yeah, it was Tom Hanks for Forrest Gump. So
I can't deny
bad
that
timing on his part. The movie came out December 29th. If they would have waited a week,
I know.
Maybe he could have won.
I mean, to get in my soapbox for a second, it feels so unfair to so many films that like they get fed up in like Oscars and Academy Awards and those kind of things. Well, when it's like that, I feel like there should be some base rewards of like, you just made an exceptional film. Like there should be an award just for that that goes out of its way. I'm sorry, I'm trying to cough here a second. It's like, yeah, it's like, it's not as, to me, like this film is good. It's not as good as Forrest Gump though, I'll admit. But I still think this film is definitely praiseworthy in its own right. Definitely. And it really deserves its time in the light for sure. And just because Forrest Gump came out does not make Mr. Holland's Opus any less of a film.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a little caught up in those kind of award ceremonies, kind of stuff like that. So just because it didn't win the award doesn't mean it's any less of a film. And I wish there was more opportunities to show appreciation for films outside of just three guys.
So you're saying it's an honor. Are you saying it's just an honor to be nominated?
I am, exactly. You're the first loser.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about some trivia. We could talk about this movie for hours, but
yeah. Well, actually not very long, but
the composer, Michael Kamen, was so inspired by this story in this film that he started a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing musical instruments to underprivileged students called the Nordhoff Robbins Trust. So it had an impact on some of these people. When Cole is sitting on the speakers while playing records, he and his father have an exchange in sign language. Cole signed, "Show me more," and Mr. Holland signs back, "I would love to show you more." See, that's something that I didn't catch because I don't know sign language, but I wish it would have had some
subtitles.
Thank you. Yeah, something like that, so we'd be able to see it. Though not mentioned by name, the job offer Cole writes in his letter home near the end would have been Gallaudet University, which is the world's only university with all programs and services specifically designed for deaf or hard of hearing students. It was founded in 1864 by an act of Congress, signed into law in 1864 by President Abraham Lincoln, and is the only college whose diplomas have the signature of the U.S. president and not the university's president.
That's awesome.
Can you imagine finding one of those diplomas signed by Abraham Lincoln?
That is so
That would be awesome.
That is awesome.
You're still signing him today.
But he signs a vampire hunter now.
Vampire hunter now. Abraham Lincoln, vampire hunter.
David Clegg, the actor who portrayed the school board superintendent, actually was a school teacher. His first love was acting, but he turned to teaching to provide for his family and ultimately made a career out of it. So he's actually a real life Mr. Holland. There is a teenager in this movie that you guys missed in your casting. There is the teenager Katie Sackhoff was a child extra in this film. She has stated that she hated this experience, but vowed to Richard Dreyfuss that she would work with him again. She ended up playing his daughter in The Education of Max Bickford in 2001. So I didn't even know she was in the movie either. I thought that was just a pretty cool thing.
That's pretty fun.
I didn't even pick her out of the crowd.
Yeah. Jean Louisa Kelly, who plays Rowena, did all of her own singing and dancing. She's a trained singer, dancer, and actress. In addition to movies, she has done a number of stage productions. There is a sign after Richard Nixon is speaking that says, "Welcome home." Then a clip of a soldier kneeling down to kiss the ground since the airbase is in the USA. That man is Gail Mason Kearns, who returned after 4 years of being MIA and a POW in Vietnam. This was actual footage of his happiness to be home again in 1973. He was supposed to be brought down the ramp on a stretcher, but insisted he would walk down instead. So I like how they incorporate some of that real stuff in there. Yeah, it's just amazing. Glenn is a big fan of the Beatles and is greatly affected by the death of John Lennon. He also sings Beautiful Boy for his son. But you can also see reflected in his final concert, the final notes sample the ending of A Day in the Life. So there's that too. Richard Dreyfuss would have had no trouble looking like he was playing the piano. 15 years earlier, he and Amy Irving spent extensive time learning to mimic real piano playing for their film, The Competition. So there's a lot more stuff in here, but since we have three of us tonight, I figure we'll just go ahead and jump out to thoughts, feelings, and ratings of this movie. And Kyle, also, what prop piece are you going to take? We'll kick it over to Bond first. Bond, we'll let you start it, then we'll kick it to Kyle.
Man, you know I love this movie. Come on. It's entertaining. It's fun. It's a little bit long. I mean, it's over like 2 hours, almost 2.5 hours long. It's a little bit long at times, but just the impact that he made over the decades. Richard Dreyfuss deserved the Academy Award nomination, I thought. Like I said, the woman who played Iris did a wonderful job. It was so fun to see like famous actors and actresses through the decades, like play all these different students. I thought that was really cool. Overall, I have to give this movie like an 8.5. I can't really find that many flaws with it. It's just a beautiful movie. Man, my prop piece, that's a hard one. I'll have to go with maybe like a piece of sheet music that has, you know, one of his original sheet music of his opus he's working on.
All right.
I think that's what I'd pick.
Kyle?
Yeah. I'm going to largely echo Bond's assessment there. I think an 8.5 is completely more than fair. I also agree with him that the film is very long. I think I've heard sentiment made before on a few other films that I've really taken over the past couple months since I've left the show. But there's probably there's like a hour and 45-minute masterpiece and a pretty good 2.5 hour film, in my opinion. Yeah, I feel like this film could be cut down and it'd be largely for the better. But at the same time, I can't say where you should cut it and all that kind of stuff because I'm not a director, not to kind of seen that or that kind of such. But overall, this film is excellent and can definitely be well appreciated in multiple viewings. I think it's kind of up there with Forrest Gump of being a great period piece film that really reflects the decades in an excellent way and to tell a great story of real life kind of triumphs that can be appreciated. So I really appreciate this film on that level and think there's a lot there to be said. And like I said, I agree with Bond too, seeing the younger actors who are now in their kind of who are kind of now in their retirement years is pretty impressive as well. Like I said, this film came out in like 90, same year as Forrest Gump, we said. So yeah, overall this film is excellent and deserves that 8.5. I'm going to give that rating. I want to agree with Bond just full on. And one prop piece I would steal, probably that hydraulic car in the 1995 scene, just to be an absolute cretin, an absolute creature of society. Have that hydraulic car I saw in 1995, so I'll probably steal that one. Jimbo, what are your opinions on the film?
Well, what an amazing movie. When I sat down to watch this, my wife's a music teacher. She's also a school secretary, but she's also a piano teacher. And she sat down and watched it with me, and she starts crying too. And, you know, I guess being a teacher, you guys have different perspectives than like me or Kyle would have because we're just outsiders looking in. But when you're a teacher, a movie like this is going to affect you differently than it does me and Kyle. I think this movie was fantastic. And, you know, it makes you think to yourself sometimes, what have I done with my life? You know, have I ever affected anybody that will remember me in some way that maybe I helped them out, or maybe I, you know, encouraged them in a moment that they needed encouraged, or maybe helped turn their life around or whatever. I'm right there with you guys. I think an 8.5 is perfect score for this film. I'm not a big music guy. I can't carry a tune in a bucket. I think one of my favorite scenes of this movie, if you guys remember the kid that empties his valve on his trumpet on the girl's shoe. And then at the end, they revisit that when they're all on stage. She still gives him that look.
He still dumps it on her shoe.
Like a joke there. Yeah.
Love that. My prop piece, give me the little stick at the end that he's conducting with. I don't know what they're called. Yeah, whatever they're called. But it's not only us. We have a special MP3 we're going to play from ADZ. So let's see what ADZ has to say about this.
Hey guys, ADZ here. Thanks for inviting me in, Jimbo, for the anniversary episode and to review the movie Mr. Holland's Opus. I apologize that I can't be present via Zoom this evening, but I want to congratulate Jimbo and Bond on the 7th year anniversary of the podcast. You know, I'm thankful that I was able to link up with the show in its earliest days when it was just like one table, 2 chairs, and a microphone. I would say technologically we've come quite a long ways in these 7 years. You know, the podcast has afforded me the opportunity to meet some really nice people who share the common interest of the enjoyment and love of cinema and television. People, of course, like Terrence and Kyle, Jackie and Bond, and most recently, Dustin. You know, it's also allowed me to reconnect with some old friends and to participate in a couple of live shows. And I'm grateful for that. But anyway, now on to the review of Mr. Holland's Opus, the movie at hand. This movie made me feel really old when I discovered that Richard Dreyfuss was younger than I am. He was age 48 when the film was released in 1995. That made me feel really old. I remember watching it, of course, in 1995. I believe I watched it at the movies. I can't remember which one. But of course, I had a crush on Jean Louisa Kelly. I loved her brooding teenage character from a few years earlier in the movie Uncle Buck. And but upon watching it again, I couldn't help but see some parallels from one of the Twilight Zone episodes that we covered from last year entitled The Changing of the Guard. I know it's a shameless plug, but it's a really good episode. If you guys are interested, you should check it out. Season 3. I think it's the very last episode in season 3. And here are some of the similarities from that episode to this movie. In both, the teacher in question, the main character, he is questioning his worth. In Changing of the Guard, Professor Fowler believes that he has failed because the poetry that he taught to his students never really was impactful on them. And in Mr. Holland's Opus, Glenn Holland, he feels that he's a failure for never completing the grand musical composition and that he's just a high school teacher. That's sort of the feeling that he has when he initially takes the teaching job, but that changes, of course, over the course of the movie. In both instances, the episode and this movie, the administration forces both teachers out. So that's a common parallel. And then the third thing is that we see the hidden impact of teaching. Professor Fowler is visited by his former students in a supernatural sort of twist. And we see how he's deeply impacted and shaped their lives. Mr. Holland discovers, especially in the film's final act, that the generations of students were profoundly influenced by him in that final performance scene. Both have emotional climaxes centered around recognition. Fowler's realization comes through a quiet, intimate encounter with his former students in a classroom. And Holland's comes in a public, more emotional tribute scene where the students perform his symphony that he's worked on over 3 decades. In the final analysis, the bottom line, I really enjoyed the movie. It's a wholesome, feel-good movie that really pulls at your heartstrings, whose message really centers around a meaningful life that is well lived in the service of others rather than in yourself. Hopefully Bond can keep it together without weeping. He joked previously when we mentioned that this was going to be the movie that we covered for the anniversary episode that he was going to have trouble maybe keeping it together because it's an emotional movie. I think IMDb rated this a bit low in my opinion. I would bump it up. I think it was rated at like a 7.5. I would bump it up to at least an 8, if not an 8.5. I think it's a really good, again, feel good, wholesome movie. For me, I think the most impactful scene, in my opinion, is when Holland is giving a lecture about Beethoven while struggling to come to grips with his son's deafness and all of the tragedy that surrounds that in the movie. And then one of his students asks the question, like something to the effect of, how could Beethoven know what a C note would sound like? And to which Mr. Holland responds, well, Beethoven wasn't born deaf. And that was a very impactful scene. It thus reaffirming the tragedy and sorrow of not being able to share the greatest passion in his life, which was music, with the most precious person in his life, who was his son. I thought that was really well done there. For my prop piece, I'm going to take the 1966 Chevy Corvair, of course. You know I love the cars. Thanks again to Jimbo and everybody else for having me in. Hopefully you guys have a great recording time and review of this movie. Many happy returns, of course, for the tragedy of cinema. And I think that's a wrap. And cut.
So there we had old 80Z chiming in. It's amazing that he came up with what, an 885, just like the rest of us.
I was so worried.
Yeah. And, you know,
Unfortunately, hate it.
I don't know if you guys know this, but 80Z and I went through pretty much all of elementary. He was a grade higher than me all throughout elementary school. And we had lost touch probably after he graduated in 1995. I was 96. And it wasn't until I started this podcast, I think it was probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 episodes in, and he reached out to me. He's like, oh man, I didn't know you had a podcast. I love it. Let's meet up for lunch. And that was the first time in like 20 or 25 years that I had seen him. And we were really close. We went on family vacations together down to Florida, Myrtle Beach or wherever. I can't remember. I think it was Florida. And so it's great that he came aboard, and then he started doing the Twilight Zone with us. And he just became a regular co-host doing that stuff. So it's amazing that something that became a hobby actually has brought me around to see a lot of new friends, make new friends, and just meet a lot of great people. A lot of podcasting friends, you know, all the live shows that we've attended. You know, Jerry from Hillbilly Horror Stories, he helped me get this started. And then with his tragic passing about a year and a half ago, you know, I'm thankful for Jerry to let us do what we do. He would happily answer any question anybody ever had. Bond knows. Bond listened to Hillbilly Horror Stories. That's actually how he found this podcast, because I think we were part of his Halloween special, I believe.
Exactly, yeah.
And, you know, you come along, then I remember Brett Stefanoff from the Evil Never Dies podcast. He's like, hey, I got some questions about podcasting, but I don't know. And I was like, wait, what do you need, bud? I'm here. And he told me it was going to be about, you know, reviewing horror movies and everything. I said, I'm right up your alley. Here we go. That's like basically what we do, but we do all movies. You know, and then it just kept blossoming out. You know, I met Justin from Mysterious Circumstances and Shane Waters from, I can't remember the name of it right now, the one that I met him when he was doing. And then, you know, coming along and found Middle Aged and Creeped Out with Todd, Sean, and Nate, and just Tim Mullins. I mean, Tim Mullins has done a lot of stuff for us. His audio dramas are top notch, which I'm a part of his faith-based audio drama getting ready to come out. So be on the lookout for that, called Intercede. So, you know, 7 years is a long time, you know, but it's a blast doing. I have fun doing it. So it's not like a work. It's not like a job. It's like, hey, this is a hobby. You know, some people collect comic books, which I do too, but some people collect comic books, some people collect music. You know, I just like to watch movies and talk about them. And I like to share our opinions, because when I was younger, you would listen to Siskel and Ebert, right? Mm. And I'd watch their shows, and I'd get so mad because they would tell a movie that I absolutely loved, and they would just destroy it. And I said, well, who are these two guys that they can do this and have this opinion? Why can't I have my opinion, and the people that like this movie have our opinion too? So thanks, Kyle, for coming on tonight. You know, I love you, buddy. I met you at the Ford Motor Company when I first came over to KTP from LAP, you know, and then the friendship just grew from there, from all of our times, this to digital shenanigans that we did. You know, and then that thing just grew out of control, right, Kyle?
Absolutely.
You know, and then
pleasure to be your friend.
Yeah, and then, you know, Bond, you know, stepping in, and he was real, you know, but Bond came on and he just picked up and just ran with the ball. You know, once we got him a little bit better equipment, it started sounding better, and now he's just
I'm just standing on the shoulders of giants around here, man. It's sometimes it's a little bit surreal to know that the crew that I used to listen to and love, and you know, I'd mow the yard and listen to an episode. I'd go to the gym and listen to a couple episodes. I'd, you know, just hanging around the house doing nothing, maybe go for a walk and I'd listen. To go from that to being on the show, it's a dream come true, guys. And you don't realize how much I appreciate the friendships that we have. And I agree with you, Jimbo. I look forward to the recording times that we have. I count down the days. I make sure I get all my stuff ready. I'm always excited to come on and share my opinions. I'm always still a little bit afraid that I'm going to be way off. I'm talking to you,
Never goes
Meatballs.
away.
yeah. Well, Kyle, just so you know, we've already started recording our summer sequels, right? We've got great ones coming out. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We've got Psycho 2. We've got some great ones. And I let Bond, I said, all right, Bond, why don't you pick one out? Guess what he picks?
What do you fix?
Meatballs 2.
Meatballs 2.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Have you ever seen Meatballs 2?
I've never heard of Meatballs 1.
Meatball 1 stars Bill Murray. It's kind of funny. The second one has nothing to do with the original. Nothing, because they sold the name.
It was another movie before.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. And you know what? Just because we're recording now, I want to say it too. Bond, thank you so much for taking on the baton in general. We appreciate having you on here as well. I especially appreciate too, because I knew I was ready to get out, and if I didn't get out, then I'd risk resenting the time I put into this place, and I didn't want to have that happen to me at all, because I care about Jimbo and I care about the show, and I think it's done a lot of good for me and a lot of good for people that listen to it, because we make something good here, I think. And knowing that you were willing and able to take on the baton was really a huge relief to me in many respects. So I'm happy that you get to be a co-host on the show, and I'm happy you take on the work that previously I was starting to get a little bit kind of overwhelmed with just life demands and all that kind of stuff too. So I really appreciate you.
Thanks, man. That means a lot to me. It really does.
Yeah, because Kyle was like, "Oh, you better start looking." He's like, "I'm gonna, you know, by the end of the year, I gotta go." And I was like, "All right." And I said, "Hey, Bond said he's fine with it." And so Kyle's like, "I'm out." Like that.
Really, I ducked out.
Yeah, he did.
Kind of rudely.
No so long episode.
And then he just ghosted me every time I'd message you. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Kyle, you know you're always welcome to come back on here, man.
Course, man.
We've had a lot of good times, man. You know, I'm sure our waitresses at Denny's and Waffle House and all those places we ate, they all miss us, because we'd always go eat. We'd either eat before or after, or sometimes before and after.
That's what it was all about. It was all about the free Denny's.
Yeah, I'd buy his food. Yeah, and not only that, but he would be driving an hour and a half up here to record every week. So
long.
Yeah.
But definitely, once again, though, I just really appreciate you, Bond, for taking on the baton, and really appreciate James for keeping the show going entirely. It's been an honor and a privilege to be part of you guys' lives.
Well, good. Now you got to go listen to every episode Bond's been on, because I know you haven't. No, I'm kidding.
I know. I'm gonna have to get a T-shirt made, so when we all get together, I'm gonna have a T-shirt that says "I'm real."
Yeah. Maybe we'll put one in the official merch shop that says "I'm not AI, I'm real."
I'm real.
Yeah. So
I am the real Bond.
Well, guys, thanks for all the listeners that have been joining us for the last 7 years. Special thanks to Terrence. Without him, this would have not been a thing at all. And if I get something from him, an MP3 or something, since he wasn't getting back in time, I'll throw it in here at the end of the episode so everybody can hear from him. Art Toast, my dad. I told a lot of people this, that another reason I like having my dad on here is because he's not going to be around forever. I'm not going to be around forever. None of us are going to be around forever.
I will.
But this podcast can live on, and you will still be, my kids will be able to hear my voice. They will be able to hear my dad's voice, and they will never be able to forget that. So I think that's something special that they will have in the archives forever. So, but we thank you guys for joining us. Thanks, Kyle, once again, and Bond for coming on, doing this special episode. And I would relay all the stuff where you can find us, but you can just listen to the next episode, and I'll have Bond tell you where you can find us, like at thetragedyofcinema@gmail.com, or on Facebook.
Exactly.
The Tragedy of Cinema podcast page. If you want to find us there, we will. So thanks, everybody. And I think this episode's coming to a close, and that's a wrap.
And cut. I'm sure the clap's going to come in there with
The tragedy of cinema.
Way to go, Kyle. Way to talk over the outro.
And cut.
Is there anything you want to say, Kyle? You might as well get it out.
I love you all.
Oh, well, you can say that after the music stops.
The tragedy of cinema, when memories shimmer. Join us as we toast to the tales we love the most. To the tales we love the most. The tragedy of cinema, when memories shimmer. Join us as we toast to the tales we love the most. To the tales we love the most. Tales we love the most.
All right, Kyle, now what do you want to say? The outro's over.
I love you all, and you shall love me. Good night.